This morning I have the privilege of introducing one of the most positive young men I have ever met. His name is Jake Olson, and this 15-year-old has done more in his young life than many have achieved in their entire lifetime. As an infant, Jake was diagnosed with cancerous tumors of the retina, and at age 1 he lost his left eye. In the intervening years, doctors saved the sight of his right eye. But then when Jake was 12 years old, he lost his right eye to the same disease. And despite that tremendous loss, Jake Olson has turned his darkness into light, and through his faith has inspired thousands. In addition, Jake is quite the athlete. So take a moment and look to the Jumbotron.
I met Jake the first time after he'd had his surgery at Golf Tech down in Irvine, and he was getting his first golf lesson, and it was quite an experience for me. I'd been teaching for 13 years and obviously had never worked with someone who didn't have vision. I had tried to hit balls before the lesson with my eyes closed, and I can tell you it's one of the hardest things I ever tried to do. We were in there for about an hour. It was pretty inspiring. He was hitting the ball well, perfect swing, but more than that, it was just his attitude. The kid never has a down moment. I left that day just thinking, you know, next time in life there's a hard situation, I'm definitely going to think twice before I start complaining. And I'm going to think of Jake and keep my head up and move on.
Jake, thank you so much for coming to the Hour of Power. Thank you for it.
Well, it's an honor being here.
It's such a privilege. And now, before we begin, you're 15 years old.
Yes.
And you've had, I mean, when I look at your story, for what you came from, I see tremendous loss and suffering. I mean, I think about the tragedy that you lost one eye, which is sad. Yeah. And it was from cancer, so you also had the sickness that you had to deal with. But then being 12 years old, being able to see still, you then, I mean, was there a point when you knew that you were going to lose your sight? And what was that journey like? What was that loss and that feeling like?
Well, I'm not going to lie, it was tough. Anyone who's lived with cancer or even has family members or friends who have cancer know that it's a tough road. And for me, being a kid, it was very tough. I was in the hospital a lot, receiving treatments, going to doctor's offices. I missed a lot of birthday parties and going to the beach and just hanging out with people just because either I was in the hospital receiving treatment or I was homesick, chemotherapy, just couldn't go out into public places, or just taking up my time because I'm catching up on school. It was very tough, and there were definite moments of anger and confusion. I really didn't know why I had to go through this. You know, we'd go through so many treatments and the cancer would go away, but then it would return. And I didn't know why. And even though I had my right eye and I was able to see with my right eye, I was constantly in the hospital and constantly in doctor's offices. And truthfully, I didn't know why. But I kept my faith in God, and I knew that somehow, some way, He was going to turn this into good, and that I just had to trust in His plan. Yeah. And then when I turned 12, and the doctors told me that I was going to have to lose my right eye, which meant I was going to go blind, it was really tough. Because here I am, 12 years old, just fought 12 years of my life to try to keep my eyesight. That's why I went through rounds of radiation and chemotherapy and all these different surgeries. And then to be told, hey, listen, you're just going to have to lose that eye too because there's no more treatments that we can use against the cancer. That was real tough. It was sad, and again, I felt I didn't know why. But
I'm a dad with 2 kids, and the first thought that comes to my mind is what your parents would have gone through. I think about, like, you know, having one of my kids losing their sight, and I mean, I would much rather go blind myself. And I think, how did your family respond to all of this and all of this struggle?
Well, I mean,
did they help you through this?
God bless them, yes. I mean, everyone, my extended family, my immediate family, they all helped me. My mom, she would always take me to hospitals. Like, she's my hospital buddy, so we'd always, you know, drive up to LA, and that's an hour ride without traffic. So we would definitely have a lot of conversations, and I think we grew closer just by spending that much time together. my dad, he's always been there for me. He would take off work to go meet me at the hospital, and he's just always been there for me, my role model. My sister, my sister, she's always been there for me, but...
Your twin sister,
My
right?
twin sister, yes. But the one thing I do have to thank my sister, she's never let me forget that even though I'm blind doesn't mean I can cheat in life or I can take advantage of people. She's always making sure that just because I'm blind doesn't mean I get privileges or
She
special
probably has
treatment.
no sympathy for you
No,
at all.
exactly, right. So
You need somebody like that in your life.
exactly, so I have to thank her for that.
Yeah, that's great. And so what I was hearing from you is that through this whole process, you were suffering, but you were mentioning, but without your faith, you wouldn't have been able. What was that like? How did your faith give you strength in the midst of your struggle?
Well, I can't imagine going through what I went through or just going through any hardship without having Christ in your life. I mean, he's the only rock-solid thing that's always there. You can try to base your life on something else. A lot of people, alcohol or drugs or different things like that, but eventually it doesn't work out. It's not a stronghold. You can try to stand on it, but like the Bible says, it's just sand. It's going to be washed away in the storm. So building my foundation on Christ, which is a rock, it really stood. It really did. When I went through treatment, and even though it didn't feel like Christ was always there, I knew that if I put my faith into Him, that He was going to work it out for the good.
Yeah, and He did, right? I mean, I'm
yeah.
watching this video of you. How did you? Forgive me, but how do you golf?
Well, I mean, very carefully.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's been tough, I have to admit, I think anyone who golfs in here can say golf is a challenging sport, and not seeing the ball makes it that much more challenging, so just a lot of practice, repetitive swings, and eventually, if you get the right swing, you can connect with the ball and just pray it goes straight, right?
Yeah. My dad's a terrible golfer. I think he would play better if he didn't see the ball, actually. Anyway, but you're an athlete. You swim, you play football. You have like a football team you're with, and you do all these amazing things. And then you've started. I mean, with all this tragedy, you've also written a couple books.
Yep.
His new book, "Open Your Eyes to a Happier Life."
Yep.
And you started a foundation, Out of Sight Faith. What's that about?
My foundation helps blind kids who are in school get the technology they need to succeed in school so that they can be in regular classrooms and do regular things that any other sighted person could. It also helps fund research for not only cures to my cancer, but also other eye diseases that cause blindness.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so I see God, it seems like God has taken the struggle that you've gone through and used it to really do a lot of good for the world. I mean, God is really working through your life, even at 15.
No, I know. It is amazing when you think about it, because when going through, when I heard that I was going to go blind and going through that whole experience, I never thought that months afterwards and years afterwards that I would be speaking in front of thousands of people and inspiring others through my story. I never would have thought of that, and it's just a testimony to what God can use. I mean, He can use something as bad as losing your sight and going blind at a young age to inspiring thousands, and it's just amazing.
In John chapter 9, Jesus heals a blind man, and he heals, they say He healed him twice, because the first blindness was his physical vision, but then there was a spiritual vision that I think came to the blind man because he couldn't see his whole life. Do you feel in your life that there is something you can see that a lot of people with their sight can't or haven't seen? And if so, what is that?
I think that what most people do not see is what God has in store. As humans, we can only see what's in front of us. We can only see our present. We think we know what's going to happen in the future, but we really don't know. And what I think we miss is that God can see everything. He can see He can see me as 80 years old right now, And so he knows, and He's set plans for my whole entire life. He knew I was going to be here. He knows what I'm going to do tomorrow. He knows what I'm going to do the next day. He knows everyone's life, and He's planned out everyone's life. And I think most people lose sight of that. But if you don't, if you realize that He has a plan to prosper us and give us hope in the future, then all of a sudden, not only do our worries go away because we now have faith that He's going to work through us for the good, but also you can start living the life that He has intended for you.
Yeah. Jake, thank you. You're teaching us what my grandfather taught so many people for so long, which was to turn scars into stars and hurts into halos, and really in the midst of your suffering, use it for the glory of God. Is there one last word that you would want to give everyone, this one thing that you would want to tell the world?
I just want to say, keep your faith. Even though sometimes it may seem that God is not on your side and God's not with you. But I promise you, He is. And it's up to you just to have that faith in Him. Put your faith into Him. Put your faith into His plan. Because when you do, I promise you, you're going to live a life full of hope and prosperity.
Jake, thank you so much for coming. You've been such a blessing and an inspiration to us. God bless you.